on Vancouver, Washington, on the other side of the country from where the Wright brothers did their thing in Kitty Hawk. This is a pretty notable site as well as far as aviation history. It wasn't but a couple years after the Wright brothers did their thing that civilians were already landing in this airfield back here. It's called Pearson Field. A lot of cool history here, and I'm not going to butcher it all by not getting all the information correct, but I wanted to note that is even the landing of a unscheduled landing of a transpolar flight from Russia. I think they were initially trying to go to Oakland, California, and they spent 65 hours in the air going over the North Pole and had to land here because they couldn't quite make it with the ice on their wings and just the oil pressure of the airplane pulling them down. But it's Pearson Field. You can see Fort Vancouver back there. It's part of the Hudson Bay Company. A lot of history behind that is one of their posts covering the Pacific Northwest. Hudson Bay Company was pretty instrumental in being a part of the, well, colonization, founding of our country, all the things that kind of go in with that in this land, the good and the bad. And they covered a lot of ground, and that's one of their forts over there in the national park system. It's commemorating that time in the life of our country through that. But standing over here at Pearson Field, a lot of cool things over here to read about, and just thought I'd bring some of those things to your attention. It's a dreary day, as it always seems to be when I come out here to the Portland area to visit family. And this day has lived up to its reputation out here. It is yucky, and it's November 2020. Within the Fort Vancouver National Historic Site are a bunch of these buildings, and they're scattered all around, and they're all part of a former army post that used to be on site here. And you know, this is all part of the National Park Service, and I just can't say enough about the value of that for our country. But within this place, and what they're trying to do is they've kind of got a vision for preserving and interpreting history. And you can see some of that master plan that they're using here. And just pretty cool. Just seeing all these old buildings and all the history that was incorporated in this place. I just love being able to wander in places like this. If you go down the sidewalk here, Fort Vancouver proper, the Hudson Bay Fort, Hudson Bay Company Fort is over there, and back behind all these buildings is a Pearson Airfield. Okay, along the row of houses here are the officers' quarters. From what I failed to mention is what's called the Vancouver Barracks back there. You can see a little bit more, right across the street from the officers' quarters is the barracks. And we are back over there in the last video, and you can see Fort Vancouver National Historic Site sign right there. And just a little bit more of the lay of the land. Just a beautiful park, and like I said, the National Park Service is just an amazing part of our government. You can just see how beautiful the grounds are here. There you can see a sign, Vancouver Barracks, established 1849. A lot of history here, and I've read a lot of the different signs along here, but like I said earlier, I'm not going to butcher history. Look it up. There's some fascinating stuff, and when you're definitely on the Pacific Northwest, you know, this is one of those kind of locations that you want to go visit. Just beautiful. And even in the middle of November, you can see the beauty of the fall colors. Yucky day, but beautiful setting to be walking around right now. So now this is called the Eatery at the Grant House, and it's named after Ulysses S. Grant, which is pretty fascinating to me, because he served as a quartermaster at Fort Vancouver from 1852 to 1853. Not too long ago, I listened to the audiobooks of Ulysses S. Grant on his memoirs, mainly his recounting of the different battles that he was involved in. And it's just fascinating. I'm on the other side of the country from videos I've even done talking about Ulysses S. Grant. Just a fascinating figure in and of himself, but now I'm over on the Pacific Northwest on the opposite side of the country, and I hear something that's it's got a connection. You know, this was never his residence, but just interesting. Right across the street from Vancouver Barracks. So at home, I've got a box. It's not a real big box, but it's a box big enough to hold all the brochures that I've received over the years from the National Park Service. They're like works of art to me. They're just beautifully done, and I wish I had a way to display them. I remember a few years ago when I was substitute teaching, a history teacher, and maybe it was his inspiration, because when I did his class, he had tons of these things. I think I had some at the time, but it just reminded me of the value of them, because I don't know, I looked through them and I just saw just how interesting they were, and he even had them displayed on the walls of his classroom. He had so many, he couldn't do all of them, but they were there. I try not to make this the National Park Service promotion or commercial, even though a lot of this is, and I highly recommend you seeking those places out. But I do want to make a connection to these videos that I've been doing in regard to We're in This Together. I just want to encourage you all to do a few things, and I can go so many different directions with maybe just some application from just being out here, but I'm encouraging you all to make some connections. And that's the word for the day, connections. You know, I was thinking about it with Grant over there, that, you know, I'm on the other side of the country in the East Coast. You know, a lot of what Grant did was there and in the St. Louis, you know, Midwest area, but he had a connection out here. And it's just neat to see those kinds of things, particularly in our country's history, the people that are a part of it and the connections and how they were involved in it. Now, I know our history is muddled and it's got the good and the bad, but there's a lot of nobility, a lot of integrity, a lot of good things that you can find in the history of our country. And I want you to make those connections as you see things and you hear about people. You know, take the time to learn about that, because I think there's some lessons there for us even today as we struggle through difficult times with this pandemic in so many ways. Our country has just been impacted in so many different ways that, like I said, one short video isn't going to cover all that, but I'm encouraging you with that to make some connections with history, because that may help you today. And I don't know what those lessons may be, but for me, it's you know, it's a bit of a what's the word? You know, it just warms my heart to be out here and to see the things that people have done over the years, the good things that people have done in our country. But I want to even take a little bit more of a leap with that word, connections. That you got people all around you to connect with. You know, it's not just the past, where you look at great people like Ulysses S. Grant or Daniel Boone or Abraham Lincoln or any number of people that we admire to one degree or another. But there's people all around you that have so many admirable qualities as well that you need to connect with, because you can learn from them. And there's something that I'm sure we can all receive from each other, especially during this pandemic, to help us kind of navigate through these difficult waters. And I'm not just saying, you know, just during this time. I think 2020 has maybe been a wake-up call for a lot of us, that we need to have those kind of connections. Connections with our history, not rewriting our history, but connections to that history to find the truths and the things that are helpful for us as we move forward, as we're in this together, but also the people around you that can help you just look at, maybe just with a little different perspective, a little bit maybe of a paradigm shift in your thinking because of people that you know and events that you've studied at a place like this. So there's my encouragement to you all. I know this is a long video, and I hope you made it to the end here. I'm standing in the pavilion here at the Vancouver Barracks. When this was a barracks, this was a center point of activity where people were connected together, the officers, the people that were serving, the community. I read somewhere that music would be played at a place like this, and people would gather around, and they would all be connected around community or our flag, which still waves. We're all in this together, folks. Remember, 2020. Let's keep moving forward together.